It started on a Thursday, an ordinary, stupidly bright Thursday in late September, the kind where the sun slices through your blinds like a scalpel and everything feels a little too real. I was drinking burnt coffee from a chipped mug I hated, standing in my kitchen in the same pajama pants I'd been wearing for 3 days. I'd just turned 34, recently divorced, and clinging to my straight guy identity like it was a life raft. Which, in hindsight, was funny or tragic, depends how you look at it. My new place was a rental duplex tucked in the quieter end of a neighborhood, the kind of block where you can hear sprinklers start before dawn, and where people care way too much about hedge symmetry. It was peaceful, dead peaceful, the kind of quiet that makes your own thoughts echo a little too loudly. He lived next door. Calvin, a retired mechanic, I think, 55, divorced, too. No kids, no ring. Always wore these dark denim jeans and a white undershirt like it was a uniform. I'd see him out front sometimes, pruning his roses with this surgical care, like each bloom might bite him back if he wasn't gentle enough. He was built like someone who had worked with his hands his whole life. Not a gym body. No, something grittier. Real. I used to catch myself watching him. Only for a second. Maybe two. Nothing weird. Just curious. We'd nod to each other in passing. Civil. Barely neighbors. I didn't even know his last name. But there was something about the way he looked at people, slow and direct, like he was listening even when no one was talking. And then, 3 nights ago, there was a knock at my door. It was just after 10 p.m., and I'd been watching an old action movie with the volume way down. I opened the door expecting Amazon or a drunk neighbor. It was him, Calvin. His shirt clung to him like it was still soaked from the rain earlier, and he held an unlit cigarette in his hand, fingers twitching like maybe he'd forgotten how to hold it. "I need to ask a favor," he said, voice low, hesitant. He didn't elaborate, just stood there, waiting, his eyes stormy, unreadable, searched mine like he knew something I didn't. I let him in. It was the kind of decision that felt small in the moment, reflexive, like offering a stranger your seat on the bus. But the way he walked past me, the way his shoulder brushed mine, intentional, slow, it made my skin buzz, like I'd been touched by something I wasn't supposed to want. He didn't sit, just stood in the living room, staring at my bookshelves like he was trying to make sense of who I was. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "You ever think about men?" My heart stuttered. I laughed, stupidly, nervously, trying to deflect. But he didn't smile. He just watched me, his expression, unreadable, unblinking. What was I supposed to say to that? And why did I want to answer him? Something had shifted. He hadn't come over for a cigarette or a favor. He came with a question that would ruin the quiet. And I think I wanted it ruined. But who knocks on a door at night just to ask that? The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I didn't sleep well. Too many thoughts chasing each other down into places I hadn't let myself go in years. Calvin's question, his voice low and steady, kept replaying like a whispered dare I hadn't known I was waiting for. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was messing with me. Maybe I'd misunderstood. But there was something about the way he looked at me, like he already knew the answer I was too afraid to say out loud. I kept my blinds closed that day, like I was hiding from something or someone. I worked remotely, which gave me plenty of time to sit with the silence. Emails blurred together. The keyboard tapping became a heartbeat I could barely hear over the weight in my chest. I didn't see Calvin all day. No pruning. No garage door clanking open. No creak of his old porch chair. Nothing, which was strange. For someone who lived such a clockwork life, his absence felt loud. By 4 p.m., I found myself standing by my kitchen window, staring into his yard like some suburban stalker. His car was still parked at an odd angle in the driveway, like he came home in a hurry and never corrected it. I didn't even realize I was walking over there until I was halfway across the lawn, barefoot, and holding a mug of now-cold coffee, like it was some kind of peace offering. I knocked on his door. No answer. I knocked again. 3 quick raps. Still nothing. The porch creaked under me when I shifted weight, suddenly self-conscious. This was stupid. I didn't even know the guy. What if he was just sleeping? Or, worse, what if he wanted space? I turned to leave, then heard it. A thump. Soft, but definite. I froze. Listened. Silence. Then again, thump, followed by a scraping sound like something heavy being dragged. The noise came from inside, past the hallway. "Calvin," I called, voice louder than I meant. "It's me. You okay?" No reply. The door wasn't locked. I wish it had been. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting him to yell or laugh, or look at me like I'd lost my mind. But the house was dim, quiet. The air smelled like cigarettes and cedar. His place was cleaner than I expected. Spartan almost. Everything in its place, except for a single chair tipped over near the kitchen counter and a shattered glass on the floor, amber liquid pooling around it. "Calvin," I said again, softer. Then he stepped into view. He looked rough. Shirtless, barefoot, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept either. There was a long, fresh scrape on his forearm. His expression wasn't angry or startled, it was something worse. Blank. He looked at me for a long moment, then finally spoke. "I didn't think you'd come." I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came. The chair, the glass, the look on his face. What happened? I asked. He exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. "Had a bit of a fall. Tried to reach a bottle on the top shelf. Stupid." His voice was rough, like it had been fighting something all night, but I didn't believe him. Not entirely. He sat on the couch, the leather groaning under him, then looked at me again. "You want to know why I asked you that last night?" I didn't nod. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. Let the moment stretch between us like a wire pulled too tight. "I used to think I could just turn it off," he said, finally. "The part of me that wanted something else. Something different." He didn't say the word. Neither of us did. But it was hanging there in the air like smoke. I married a woman I didn't love because I thought it would make me normal. It didn't. The room suddenly felt hotter, closer. I sat down in the armchair across from him, but I didn't relax into it. I perched on the edge like I was afraid it would swallow me. "I wasn't trying to mess with you," he said. "I saw you watching me the other day. The way your eyes held just a little too long. I know that look. I've worn it." 1,000 instincts screamed at me to lie, to laugh, to say I had no idea what he was talking about, but instead, I said the quietest truth I'd ever let slip. "I don't know what I want." He nodded, like that answer made sense to him. "You don't have to." The way he looked at me, it wasn't lust. Not just that. It was something heavier. Something searching. I was straight my whole life. I said, the words bitter on my tongue. Or I thought I was. Maybe I still am. I don't know. I don't want to ruin anything. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "things need to break before they can be real." Then he stood, walked over to the kitchen, grabbed a rag and began cleaning up the broken glass like it was nothing, like he hadn't just cracked open something in me I didn't know existed. I watched him, and every muscle in me screamed to leave, to go home, to lock the door behind me and forget this ever happened. But I stayed. He tossed the rag in the sink, then leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You can go if you want, or you can stay a while. I won't ask you again." I didn't answer right away. I stood up, the armchair creaking behind me. My hands were sweating. My throat was dry. The air between us felt charged, like standing too close to a storm. "I should go," I said, but I didn't move. He tilted his head slightly, like he was studying me. "Then why haven't you?" I didn't know. Or maybe I did. Maybe the truth was starting to leak through all the cracks I'd spent years patching up. "Is this wrong?" I asked quieter than I meant to. Calvin didn't blink. "Does it feel wrong?" And there it was, that same look, the one he gave me last night, the one that made something in my stomach twist and tighten. He walked toward me slowly, not touching, not even reaching, just being near, close enough for me to feel his body heat. "I don't want to make this harder for you," he said. "But you are," I whispered. We stood there, breath mingling, hearts pounding in an invisible tug-of-war neither of us wanted to win. Every second felt like an hour, and every inch between us was a dare. Then his hand brushed mine, just barely. I didn't pull away, and that scared the hell out of me. It was just a touch. The skin of his knuckle brushed mine like it had wandered too far and wasn't sure whether to pull back. And I should have moved. I should have laughed it off, made a joke, said something dumb and straight and safe. But I didn't move. He didn't either. There was a thick silence between us, the kind you could slice down the middle with a knife. Not angry, not even sexual, just heavy, dense, with the kind of knowing that can't be walked back. I swallowed. My throat burned. Calvin looked at me, and for the first time, I didn't look away. His voice came out quiet, like it was meant for no one but me. You keep waiting for someone to tell you it's okay, but no one's coming. I took a shaky breath. I don't know what this is. I've never. He stepped back. Just a little. Just enough. I'm not trying to turn you, he said, eyes still on mine. This isn't about that. God, I see how you carry yourself. The way you move around people. Like you're always holding your breath. I know that walk. I did it for years. I laughed nervously, but it wasn't funny. None of this was. Maybe I'm just lonely. I muttered more to myself than him. So am I, he said, but not enough to imagine something that's not there. I looked down at my hands. My skin felt hot, like it was blushing without permission. I'm not ready, I said. You don't have to be. The way he said it, it didn't feel like a pass. It felt like an invitation. A door unlocked but not opened. Then he turned away and headed for the back door, to the small, half-rotted deck that faced the yard. I followed. I don't know why. Maybe because the air inside was too thick. Maybe because something in me needed to stay near him, even if I didn't understand it. He lit a cigarette, the tip glowing orange in the dark. The smoke curled around his face, softening the hard lines, making him look younger. Or maybe just more tired. I told myself I'd never get involved again, he said suddenly. Not like this. Not with someone who doesn't know what the hell they want. Because I've been on both ends of that, and it never ends pretty. I leaned against the wooden railing, keeping space between us. My chest felt tight, my pulse wild. I'm not playing with you, I said. I didn't say you were. He exhaled, the smoke catching in the yellow porch light above. But if you kiss me tonight, there's no pretending this didn't happen. The words hit like a hammer. Blunt. True. I turned toward him. Do you want me to? He met my eyes, slow and steady. I want you to want to. I stepped closer. The boards creaked under me. I felt the gravity between us pulling like a current, slow, patient, inevitable. Every nerve in my body screamed this was wrong, that I wasn't gay, that I had a whole past to prove it, a marriage, a family, friends who would never understand. But there was something older than fear in the way he looked at me, a kind of recognition. And I realized then I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of what he made me feel. I don't know if I can do this. I said, voice breaking at the edges. You're already doing it, he whispered. I closed the distance between us. Close enough to feel the warmth of him. Close enough to feel the tremble in my own hands. And then I kissed him. It wasn't fireworks. It wasn't a movie. It was quiet, careful. It tasted like cigarette smoke and breath held too long. He didn't push or pull. He just waited. And when I pulled back, something cracked inside me. I saw it in his eyes. The sadness. The caution. The hope. I stepped back again, heart hammering. What the hell am I doing? Calvin didn't move. Whatever this is, it's yours, not mine to name. I shook my head. I can't. I don't know how to be this. I don't even know who I am right now. He looked down. Then take time. Figure it out. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I ran a hand through my hair, pacing like a man who just heard his own secret out loud for the first time. This could ruin me, I said. His voice was barely a whisper. Or it could free you. That's when I heard it, a noise, sharp and quick. I turned. Someone was standing in the shadow, just beyond the fence. A figure, watching. I stepped toward it, but by the time I reached the edge of the porch, they were gone. Just the sound of shoes crunching gravel as they disappeared into the night. I looked at Calvin. Did you see that? He nodded slowly. Yeah. My stomach turned. Who the hell was that? I don't know. We stood in silence. Suddenly I felt cold, exposed. like something intimate had been witnessed by someone who shouldn't have seen it. They saw us, I said. Calvin's voice was low. Let them. But his jaw was tight, his fingers clenched around the railing. Something had changed, and now we weren't alone in the silence. After the figure vanished felt louder than the footsteps themselves. My pulse was still hammering as I stood frozen on Calvin's porch, staring into the empty night. The faint buzz of a neighbor's porch light, the far-off bark of a dog. It all felt suddenly unreal, like the world outside had fractured just enough to let something in. Something we weren't ready for. They saw us, I said again, barely able to hear my own voice over the rush in my ears. Calvin didn't reply right away. He stayed perfectly still, one hand gripping the porch railing so tightly his knuckles were white. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight, flat. This was a mistake. I turned to look at him. What? I shouldn't have let this happen. I blinked, confused, the heat of the moment slipping away, replaced by a creeping cold. You kissed me back, and I'll think about it every goddamn night now, he said, eyes finally meeting mine, but that doesn't mean it was smart. There was something in his expression I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not the kind that came from someone watching in the dark. A different kind. Older. More personal. You're scared, I said. He exhaled through his nose. I lived through the worst years to be someone like me. I survived it. I wore the mask, I played the part. And the one time I let it slip, someone saw. My skin prickled. You think they'll say something? Calvin didn't answer. His silence was louder than a yes. A slow, sick realization started turning in my gut. You've done this before, haven't you? With someone like me. He didn't look at me. Once. And he went back to his wife. Pretended I never existed. Then his brother came by to talk. There was a long pause. What did he do? I asked. Calvin finally looked at me. Does it matter? I swallowed hard, suddenly understanding why he always looked over his shoulder. Why he hesitated. Why his house was so quiet. This wasn't just about shame. It was about history. Damage. Survival. I'm not him, I said quietly. I know, he replied, but you're not him either. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to say I wasn't that coward, that I wouldn't turn on him. But I couldn't promise that. Not with the way my stomach was tying itself into knots. I didn't even know who I was now. I shouldn't have kissed you, I muttered. That's not what you regret, he said. You regret who saw it. His words hit something tender, something raw, and I hated that he was right. There was a pause, not angry, just exhausted. I should go, I said. He didn't stop me, didn't ask me to stay. As I stepped off his porch, I glanced back once. Calvin was still standing there, cigarette forgotten, hands gripping the railing like he was trying to hold the house down from floating away. The walk back to my place felt longer than usual. The grass was cold beneath my bare feet. Every window around us looked suddenly alive, like eyes that might have been watching, judging, waiting. When I got inside, I locked the door. I went to the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked warped, different, like I'd crossed some invisible line and left part of myself on the other side. I touched my lips. They still tingled, still tasted like smoke and quiet desperation. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new text. Careful who sees you. Not everyone forgets. I dropped the phone. My breath caught. I stood there, staring at the screen on the floor. The words burned themselves into my brain. Not everyone forgets. Was it a threat? A warning? A memory? I didn't know who sent it, but someone saw. And now, whatever Calvin and I had, whatever it might have become, wasn't just ours anymore. It belonged to someone else, too. Someone watching. Someone silent. And in that moment, I realized something even worse. I didn't know if I wanted them to stop watching, or if I needed them to. 3 days passed. I didn't go back to Calvin's. Didn't walk the dog past his yard. Didn't peek through the blinds at night. But I thought about it. Every hour. Every minute. The kiss had branded itself into my memory, soft and terrifying, like a match lit in a room full of gas. And the text, it hadn't come again. Just the one. But the silence was worse than anything. Every shadow on the street felt like a shape. Every glance from a neighbor felt like accusation. Every knock on the door made my skin crawl. I was unraveling, and he knew it, because on the fourth day, there was a note in my mailbox. No envelope, just folded once, written in sharp, slanted handwriting. You okay? No name, but I didn't need one. That night, I stood at my window for what felt like hours, looking across the street at his porch. His light was off, the windows dark. He was giving me space. That was worse. When I finally saw him, 2 days later, it was at the grocery store. The most ordinary place in the world. Bright fluorescent lights, carts squeaking, a kid screaming over cereal in aisle 5. He was in produce, holding a bunch of bananas like they might explode. He saw me before I could turn away. Hey, he said, calm, but not casual. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. He tilted his head slightly. You all right? I nodded. Lied. Yeah, you? He shrugged. Getting there. There was a pause. 1,000 unsaid things between us, all jammed into the space between potatoes and paper towels. I got a message. I finally said, voice low. His jaw tightened. What did it say? I told him. His face didn't change, but his eyes darkened. I think I know who sent it, he said after a beat. I leaned in, pulse rising. Who? Calvin shook his head. Not here. My throat dried. Is it someone you know? He hesitated. Someone you know. I blinked. What? He looked me dead in the eye. Do you trust the people in your life to keep your secrets? The question landed like a punch. My wife, ex-wife, technically still talked to my sister. My son had friends in the neighborhood. My coworkers sometimes came by. My pastor lived 2 streets over. I suddenly couldn't think of a single person who wouldn't flinch if they knew the truth. I stepped back. I can't do this here. I know, he said, gentle, but it's already happening. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression freezing for a moment. Then he shoved it in his pocket. You need to be careful, he said, voice firm now. Don't open any emails from addresses you don't recognize. If someone shows up asking questions, you call me. Got it? Wait, what are you talking about? I asked, heart racing. What did you see? He didn't answer, just turned his cart around and walked away, leaving me standing there by the stacked oranges like I'd stepped into a life that wasn't mine. I stared after him, then at my phone. It buzzed. A photo, blurry, grainy, taken at night. Me and Calvin. On the porch. The kiss. Captioned, hope your son doesn't see this first. My legs nearly gave out. The air turned thin. And for the first time in my life, I understood what fear really felt like. Not the fear of being caught. The fear of being known. I never planned to live here. The house was my parents'. Old, slightly crooked from years of settling, with ivy strangling half the porch and a water heater that groaned louder than the television. When they passed, I swore I'd sell it and go back to the city. That was the plan. But divorce has a way of throwing you into places you thought you'd outgrown. So I stayed. Mornings were quiet here. The kind of quiet that made you hear things you didn't want to, floorboards shifting, a distant lawnmower, your own thoughts. I got used to it. Or I thought I did. The only neighbor I ever spoke to was the man 2 doors down. Mid-50s, maybe older, but didn't wear it like most do. Calvin. Lived alone. Kept to himself. Trimmed his hedges with military precision and smoked like the world was ending tomorrow. We spoke once. Just once. 3 months ago. You're the new old guy, he said, squinting against the sun. Guess so, I replied. That was it. Nothing flirtatious. Nothing strange. And yet, there was something in the way he looked at me. Like he saw something I didn't know was visible. At the time, I brushed it off. I had too much going on. The divorce, the move, the silence that filled a house meant for 4, but now held just me and a dog who didn't bark anymore. Still, I found myself looking out the kitchen window more often. His house was visible from there. Green shutters, cracked steps, a wind chime that never stopped. Sometimes I'd catch him shirtless in the garden, back slick with sweat, bending low to pull weeds or fix the hose. I told myself I wasn't watching, just noticing. Then last week, something shifted. He didn't come out. No gardening. No smoke curling from the porch. No sound. Just absence. The kind of absence that has a shape. I noticed it before I even realized I had. Every day, I expected to hear that rasping smoker's cough or see the flick of his lighter as the sun went down. But the porch stayed empty. The chime rang without wind. The hedges grew uneven. Something felt wrong. I should have left it alone. I should have told myself it wasn't my business. But that stillness, his stillness, was starting to feel personal, like the silence was aimed at me. That night, I stood outside with a beer in hand, staring too long at his front door. I told myself I'd check in tomorrow, just to be neighborly, just to make sure he was okay. But even then I think I knew. This wasn't about checking in. It was about something else entirely. Something I didn't have a name for yet, and maybe didn't want to, because part of me already knew what I'd find if I crossed that lawn. Or worse, what I wouldn't be able to walk back from once I did.